everyone. I really hope you're all doing great and staying absolutely safe as well. That's me, Akash, and I would like to welcome you all to this platform of IAS Origin. IAS Origin के इस प्लेटफॉर्म पे बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। जैसे कि आप जानते ही हैं कि एक सीरीज चलाई जा रही है जिसके अंदर हम लोग पास्ट एनालिसिस कर रहे हैं. सो वी आर डूइंग एनालिसिस ऑफ लाइक 2013 टिल 2024 के जो भी मेंस के पेपर्स हैं. In order to make this discussion actually effective, in order to make sure कि इससे आपका genuinely कुछ फायदा हो, हमने इसको बाइफरकेट किया हुआ. जैसे हमने मंडे को एक प्रॉपर ओवरव्यू दिया था इस पर्टिकुलर सीरीज का, जीएस पेपर 1 की बात की थी. देन वी डिड अ डेडिकेटेड सेशन ऑन व्हाट टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चंस आर कमिंग फ्रॉम आर्ट एंड कल्चर. ठीक है, आर्ट एंड कल्चर के ऊपर डेडिकेटेडली बात की हमने मंडे को. ट्यूसडे को वी हैड अ प्रॉपर डिस्कशन. सो बेसिकली हमने ट्यूसडे वेंसडे को पूरा आर्ट एंड कल्चर और हिस्ट्री को कवर किया है. एंड देन फाइनली टुडे इज थर्सडे एंड आज हम सोसाइटी पोर्शन को कवर करेंगे जो कि बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पोर्शन है विच कम्स इनटू द जीएस पेपर 1 ऑफ मेंस यूपीएससी सिविल सर्विसेज एग्जामिनेशन. तो आज बेसिकली उसको हमने कवर करना है. सो आई एम 100% श्योर that if you attend the session till the end you are going to be greatly benefited from this very session. So ये आपके लिए बहुत ज़्यादा कारगर साबित होगा, बहुत ज़्यादा यूजफुल साबित होगा. बिकॉज आई विल टेल यू समथिंग, व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज द बेनिफिट ऑफ दिस एनालिसिस. ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड भाई इस एनालिसिस का, इन एनालिसिस का आपकी तैयारी में क्या योगदान होगा, ये जानना आपके लिए बहुत ज़्यादा आवश्यक है, बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है. द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इज कि इन सेशन से you are basically coming to know that what all are the type of questions being asked. किस तरह के क्वेश्चंस पूछे जा रहे हैं और कहाँ से पूछे जा रहे हैं. हम लोग सिलेबस को तो हमेशा देखते हैं, जो कि देखना ज़रूरी भी है, बट जितना इंपॉर्टेंट सिलेबस है उससे कई ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है आपके पास्ट ईयर पेपर्स. ये हमेशा आप याद रखें दैट पास्ट ईयर पेपर्स आर वे मोर इंपॉर्टेंट देन सिलेबस. बिकॉज पास्ट ईयर पेपर्स का जो ये आइडिया है उससे हमें क्या पता चलता है, हम लोग ट्रेंड को डिकोड कर पाते हैं. आप जब एक ट्रेंड को डिकोड कर पा रहे हो, आपको पता है कि कैसे क्वेश्चंस आ रहे हैं, किस लेवल के क्वेश्चंस आ रहे हैं, किस टॉपिक से क्वेश्चंस आ रहे हैं, कितने क्वेश्चंस आ रहे हैं. कुछ टॉपिक्स ऐसे हैं सिलेबस के जिससे 10-11 साल में एक क्वेश्चन आएगा. कुछ टॉपिक ऐसे हैं जिससे 2-3 साल में क्वेश्चन रिपीट होता है. कुछ टॉपिक ऐसे हैं जिसकी फ्रीक्वेंसी उससे भी ज्यादा है. तो हमें मेनली यही करना होता है. हम लोग पढ़ेंगे तो सब कुछ जो सिलेबस में दिया है, बट देयर आर सम थिंग्स which we have to pay more attention to. There are some topics which we have to prepare even more diligently. For that, you can do one thing, like just imagine a particular topic है women empowerment. We know every now and then that question will be there from the women empowerment. Question will be there from the globalization. ये society की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ. तो हम लोग क्या कर सकते हैं, हम लोग कुछ अच्छे से stats तैयार कर सकते हैं. We can prepare some important stats, very prominent stats which can help you write a better answer. Getting it? So it is all about writing that answer which fetches you way better marks than what you could have achieved without writing all those facts or without giving that particular information. So all in all, what I would want is that you should have a quality answer writing skills, and that will come only when you are well prepared. So ये इस क्लास का मेन महत्व है. इतना आपको समझ आ गया होगा. All okay. So before I even move ahead, I would like to tell you that you can join this telegram channel. इसके ऊपर PDF आपको मिल जाएगा. Later on you will be getting the PDF on the channel of IAS Origin UPSC telegram channel है. Secondly, to all the qualified students for the mains, we have got a free test series for the first 50 students who are going to be enrolled in that. So you can find the link in the description below. And on top of that, every Sunday we have a workshop which is again free of cost, 12 to 3 p.m. So you can attend that also. उसका लिंक भी आपको डिस्क्रिप्शन में मिल जाएगा. So make sure you don't miss out on these initiatives, because ultimately these are the initiatives which are going to be playing a very important role in your overall preparation. So इन initiatives का आप फायदा ज़रूर लें, मैं यही चाहूँगा, because ये initiatives बहुत ज़्यादा आपको हेल्प करेंगे in boosting preparation जो आपकी है to the next level altogether. So I hope things are absolutely correct. They are going fine. So to those who don't know the pattern, basically let me tell you that GS paper 1 gives you 250 marks. All right. इसमें हमने art and culture को decode किया है. We have decoded history. We are yet to decode geography, which we will be doing tomorrow. And today we are going to be decoding the society portion, which gives you around 75 to 100 marks. Why do I say 75 to 100? Because if you pick paper of 2022 and 2023, 2022 और 23 के पेपर में it gave you 75 marks. But in 2024 altogether, they did boost the overall weightage of this portion, and they took it to around 100 marks. So out of 250 marks, if a certain portion is giving you around 100 marks, I think we cannot afford to miss out on that. That's one thing. Secondly, one very interesting observation which I have is, when this portion got introduced into the UPSC syllabus, it was back in 2013. 2013 में इसको इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया था यूपीएससी के सिलेबस पे, एंड बैक देन इट हैड अ वेटेज ऑफ merely 30 marks out of 250. So that's quite interesting. When this portion got introduced back in 2013, when the overhaul of the syllabus happened, when the syllabus was revamped, it had a weightage of merely 30 marks. But today you see the weightage has increased altogether to 100 marks. Now this tells you that UPSC genuinely wants you to study this portion. चाहता है ना UPSC, तभी तो बढ़ा रहा है weightage. कहाँ 30 marks था, कहाँ 3 questions थे, कहाँ इतने सारे questions आ रहे. So that is why we have to pay attention. And the best part, I'll tell you, if you have mastered a few topics in society, you're bound to do very well, in your overall GS paper 1. I'll tell you what, like if you pick GS paper 1 के 3 main components are there. History, I'll put art and culture also in history. History, geography, society. History has this massive syllabus. Geography again has this massive syllabus. But when we talk about society, there are a few portions which you have to master properly, and you will definitely end up getting questions. So if you ask me cost to benefit ratio, if you ask me how much input you put in the preparation and what output you are getting from that particular preparation, that is huge, that is massive, that is immense when you talk about the society का portion. Trust me on that. ये fact है. आप 4 घंटा पढ़ोगे सोसाइटी और उसमें आपकी इतनी अच्छी मतलब मार्क्स बढ़ने की चांसेस हैं जो हिस्ट्री और ज्योग्राफी में नहीं है, बिकॉज हिस्ट्री ज्योग्राफी में डेफिनेटली यू हैव टू पे मोर अटेंशन. नाउ डज दैट मीन दैट वी मिस आउट ऑन हिस्ट्री एंड ज्योग्राफी? नो, आई एम नॉट सेइंग दैट. हिस्ट्री ज्योग्राफी तो पढ़ना ही है हमने, बट मैं बस इतना कह रहा हूं that don't do that mistake, don't commit that mistake of ignoring the society. We are supposed to be doing society diligently. We have to do this society ka portion properly. This is what I'm trying to say. So if I again show you, this is how the GS paper 1 looks like. So you can have a look. Society, so back in 2024 की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, last year it gave you 100 marks, geography 75 marks. This is something we'll be doing tomorrow, geography का analysis. And yesterday and day before yesterday we did history and art and culture. 75 marks they give you. Now see this thing, 70 marks this portion gave you, 75 marks this portion gave you in 2024, and society alone gave you 100 marks. And trust me, getting these 100 marks are not as tough as getting history and geography, because history and geography you have to study a lot. But when I talk about society, you have to study smartly, you have to master some data points, and that is how you are in a position to do well. I'm sure that this idea is 100% clear to you guys, which I'm trying to convey. And on top of that, एक चीज और ध्यान रखना, that whenever you're studying any topic, for that matter, any topic, it is society or something else, so we are always going to focus on one thing, and that is consistency. Consistency is going to play a very important role. So when you have started studying something, you certainly have to understand that we have to study as if we are having our exam the next week. So that consistency has to be there, because exam से पहले तो सब consistent होते हैं, but अभी कितने consistent हो, that will certainly decide how much you score in this paper. Okay, so we already have done this thing, we have done this art and culture part, we've done the history part. Now let's talk about the society का syllabus. When you talk about the society of GS paper 1, this is what we have been given in the syllabus of UPSC. Salient feature of Indian society, diversity India, very interesting. Role of women in women organization they have talked about. And इसी में we do take into consideration one very interesting thing, and that is about women empowerment, as we call it. So that is also included here only, so we have to understand that also. On top of that, globalization, impact on Indian society, empowerment, communalism, regionalism, secularism, all these are very much important. Is that clear? So very much important point. बेटे समझ आया? So whenever we are understanding this particular point, we have to keep a few very important aspects in our mind. Hello Madhu, welcome to the class. We got to understand a few very important aspects which are certainly very much important, and that is that how in the first place are we going to be decoding this particular aspect. That's certainly important. So what we can do is, when we do the previous year question ka analysis, we can do a certain sort of bifurcation. For example, we'll put communalism, regionalism and secularism in one compartment. We can put that. That's going to be quite easy for you. Then what are we going to do is, we will be picking topics like women, sex ratio, feminization of the agriculture. So this women wali jo puri theme hai, we are going to be putting in one component, and then we'll be analyzing. And then we pick globalization, we'll analyze it separately. Then what we'll be doing is, this urbanization will be separately looking at that, what exactly is it all about. And of course, salient features of the Indian society, diversity in India, will be looking at. So you'll be amazed to know that questions are being asked from each and every portion. That is very much important. ये समझ आया? We have to understand that. So ये बहुत ज़्यादा important है. Hello, नमस्ते मधु, नमस्ते चैत्रा. चलिए, welcome. So we are supposed to be understanding these points very much specifically, that how in the best way we can do the proper analysis. So anyways, let's start the analysis, and I'll make sure that we have a proper clarity. Let's pick this particular component. Features of Indian society including communalism, regionalism, secularism. Now you have to have a proper command over these things. I'll also be telling you what kind of the questions are coming. For example, in 2013 itself, we had question coming from regionalism. Then next year we had question from secularism. Now you can see how much these topics are repeated. Every 2-3 years mein questions are coming from regionalism and secularism. So you have to be mastering all the dimensions which are associated with this particular portion. That's fine. When we talk about caste system in India, that is again a very important topic. Every now and then we have found the questions. Even this year I'm expecting a question from this because of the census. It was in a lots of news recently. We have had questions coming from communalism, questions coming from tribal issues, tribes related questions. So these are the kind of themes which we are supposed to be mastering precisely. I'll be showing you the kind of the questions which are coming from this particular theme. Recently also we have seen plenty of the questions coming from here, but let's have a look. So I hope this is very much visible to you guys. So have a look at these questions. Now when we talk about in 2013 itself, we had this question on regionalism, that growing feeling of the regionalism is important factor. So we had to discuss that. This was actually a very important question, and why this was asked, let me tell you, because of the Telangana issue. So we had to discuss this issue in length and breadth, and we had to also give some relevant examples, which was certainly very much important. So ye important tha. Then there was a question on what is the basis of regionalism. So in a way you had to discuss the basis, like kya aadhar hai, why in the first place do we have the regionalism. So how do we understand that? So it was back in 2016 we had this question. So you can be very clear about this thing, that you will be having questions being asked on these lines. So you have to master this thing. So again I am coming to here. You have to understand the basis of all of them. For example, regionalism. What is the basis? Like kis aadhar pe people are demanding that? You need to know about the linguistic basis, about the culture, all these kind of things. You have to know the caste system in India. What is the basis? Historical background. You have to know communalism in India. What is the basis? Background. Secularism status. You have to know the constitutional aspect also. And then practically, how do we look at it? All these things are going to be important. So if a question is coming on regionalism and they are asking you the basis of regionalism, now that is your duty to be knowing the basis of communalism as well, the basis of other such ideologies as well. So that is why previous year questions analysis is important, mind you. क्यों important है previous questions को समझना? Because of this thing only. So that in the first place, you should be very much confident when you go to the examination hall that how do you frame these answers. Because see, in examination in 7 to 8 minutes, you can't literally frame everything. You have to have a proper clarity that what exactly are you going to be writing. So I'm not saying that each and everything you can be preparing beforehand, but yeah, you should have some basic clarity that how in the first place you're going to be, writing that particular answer. So that is very, very important. So I am hopeful about one thing, that you have got a decent level of the clarity that how are you going to be, preparing this particular portion, because that is important. I'll be also talking about secularism part, we'll be talking about that as well. But every now and then we have got different questions from this particular portion. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, what are the challenges to our cultural practices in the name of secularism? So I'll be, dealing with the secularism on a different page. We'll be, talking about that. It was a question from 2019. So we'll be talking about that. But I am hopeful that now you have got a basic level of understanding that how in the first place you are going to be, focusing on this particular theme. Now, recently, in 2020, we got a question: do you agree that regionalism appears to be consequences of rising cultural assertiveness? ठीक है जी. So in Hindi, as we call it, कि जो क्षेत्रीयता है इसकी बढ़ती हुई सांस्कृतिक मुखरता. So basically assertive, people are assertive about the culture. You have to argue, you have to kind of give debate, you have to give the points from both the sides, and that was a question. Now that is a question of regionalism, but that's a very mature question. ये देखो regionalism पे ये question पूछा गया है around 2020. So that's what I'm saying, that from regionalism we are getting question from 2013, 2016, 2020, back to back questions are being asked. So what are we supposed to do? We have to be very much smart in understanding that how in the first place we are going to be answering these questions. ये बहुत important है. And let me be very clear, these kind of the questions you can answer well only and only if you have prepared well for that. But it's really not that easy to answer such questions if you have not done a proper preparation for that. So keep that very thing in your mind. I hope this idea is absolutely clear. ये बेटे समझ आ गया. Now, we talk about this theme of secularism. What all are the kind of the questions we are seeing from this particular theme? And right from 2013 itself, we have seen questions coming from here. So I'll be talking more about that. I hope you're finding this analysis useful. So when we talk about the secularism, like this was a question which was there in 2019. ये 2019 का question है. 2019 में we had a question on secularism, that what are the challenges to our cultural practice in the name of secularism. Now that's a very interesting question. 2019 में this was asked. So challenges to our cultural practices. This is what that was. So technically what they are doing in this question, they are trying to amalgamate this cultural practices ka aspect with secularism. So that is what is making this question a bit complicated to answer. But let me tell you one thing, if you are reading newspaper on regular basis, you are always going to have a proper channel of answering these questions. So you in your mind you will be having some relevant stats, some relevant examples, some relevant inputs which you certainly can do in order to answer these questions effectively. So that is something which you are supposed. So that's the reason you are in the first place supposed to read newspaper on regular basis. In 2022 again we had a question on art tolerance, assimilation and pluralism, key elements in making Indian form of secularism. Justify your answer. So secularism के ऊपर तो they have all in all asked various questions from time to time. Like back in 2013, it's 2013 or 2014 itself, they did ask this question that Western and Indian secularism are different. How? Getting it? So they did ask this question. Now have a look. So it was back in 2014 they had this question. Indian secularism, Western secularism debates. How are they different? That was back in 2014. So you can see direct questions have been asked on secularism. Can you see that? So UPSC in 2014 is asking this, in 2019 is asking this, in 2022 is asking this. So what does this tell you? This tells that UPSC is explicitly asking questions from these portions, and you are supposed to be able to answer them effectively. Only then you are going to be getting marks. Now one very important thing which comes when we talk about society is that society, whenever you're reading society, you cannot be reading it in an isolated manner. Society will have some components coming from polity portion also. When you're writing something about the secularism, you can give reference of article 25, 26, 27, 28. That is absolutely fine. So you are supposed to be, very much smart in your analysis. Whenever the question is being answered, make sure to add so much, value. There can be a particular data from a particular, report. You can mention that if that is authentic. A particular committee, you can mention about that. So it is absolutely okay. Make sure you add this session to your liked videos, because this can be very much helpful to you when you, revise this particular portion later on. Clear ho raha hai itna? So I am very much hopeful that now this overall idea is becoming very much clear to your mind, that how in the first place are you going to be, understanding these points very much precisely. Chalo. Now moving ahead, when we talk about one more very important portion which I would like to now talk about, and that is about caste system in India. Caste identities. We all know that, in India, especially in the certain pockets, we do talk about the caste system, and caste certainly becomes very much important as well. So we have to be understanding this point very much specifically, that, how do we master this particular thing. So, in 2023 itself, we had this question, very much important question it was in fact. So have a look at this. That's a question from 2023, and that's the question on caste identities. Caste identity pe, we had a very, very important question which was asked, back just 2 years back only. It was there, and on this caste angle or on the tribal angle, we have seen multiple questions being asked. So first of all, we have to be very much smart in order to understand this fact that these questions will be asked. First of all, you have to understand that 2023 में caste के ऊपर, communalism के ऊपर the questions was there. So directly or indirectly, UPSC is going to ask these questions. So you have to be smart enough in order to know that how do you answer these questions. So let me tell you one thing. This was a question that why is caste identity in India both fluid and static? So in a way, you have to identify both these dimensions. When we talk about the caste identities, they are in a way, in some manner, people are very conscious about the caste. But at the same time, in urban areas, what we have seen, certain dilution as well happening. So in a way, you had to amalgamate both the things together, and then only you are supposed to be, answering this question. So this is the reason why this was a question which was very much important. At times they have also been asking the questions on this, like that was back in 2015. This was a question that debate the issue whether how contemporary movements for assertion of Dalit identity work towards annihilation of the caste. So jo bhi contemporary, so now here we have to put some facts also, Dalit identity ki jo movements hain, usko bhi aapne incorporate karna tha apne answer mein. That is something which becomes very much tough at times. On top of that, then you have the question on, how sex ratio in the tribes in India is more favorable to the women. Iske upar question tha, that was back in 2016. And then later on they also did ask this question ki why are tribals referred to as scheduled tribes. So ye thoda sa polity ka bhi question hai, and it's a question of society as well. So you can see there are questions being asked on tribes, there are questions being asked on the caste angle. So you have to prepare this portion very much diligently, because there are high chances that you are going to be asked question about this in your examination. बेटे समझ आ रहा है कि नहीं आ रहा है? I hope now you understand, what kind of the questions you can expect in the examination. Thank you, Raju. Thank you so much. Now, having said that, when we talk about 2018 ka paper, then again we had this question like caste system is assuming new identities. Caste system cannot be eradicated. Iske upar you had to comment. So you do mention some important sources over here in order to make your answer better. How is Indian concept of secularism different from the Western model? Now you can see this question of 2018 is a repetition of the question from 2013. There also Indian and Western debates of secularism was asked. Here also they are kind of asking you to compare both of them. So you will certainly see this thing. the themes are going to be there, which are certainly going to be, you know, repeating themselves from time to time. Now there's a question, very important question again from 2018, as you can see. Now that is a specific question of communalism. हम लोग कम्युनलिज्म की बात करते हैं, सो ये एक कम्युनलिज्म का क्वेश्चन है, एंड I'll, you know, mention about 2023 and 2018 का question side by side. So that's a question from 2018. This says communalism arise either due to power struggle or deprivation, argue. And then we had a question, discuss the impact of post-liberal economy on ethnic identity in communalism. So you can see what is common here, communalism. So they are specifically focusing on what the syllabus is there. If you pick the syllabus of this thing, society, you find all these keywords in the syllabus itself, and they are trying to stick to the keywords itself. So that's actually a very important thing which you have to focus on the UPSC, that UPSC will not go away from the syllabus, they will stick to the syllabus most of the time. So you can certainly see that they are kind of asking the questions which are very much pertaining to the syllabus part, है ना? They're asking questions on the regionalism, on the secularism, on the caste identities, on the tribals, on the communalism. So they genuinely are asking questions on these themes. So this is certainly a point which we have to be understanding. Very clear? So moving ahead now, you have some questions on the diversity part of India as well, that India is a diverse country. So in the context of the diversity, you know, it can be said that regions form, you know, cultural units rather than states. So ये भी regionalism angle इसमें आ रहा है कहीं ना कहीं, and the spirit of the tolerance के ऊपर they had this question. So these are very much analytical questions. So you have to pick tolerance. It is not only feature of Indian society, but also playing important part in the present. You have to elaborate. So this was the kind of the question they asked. So all in all, what is more important here? Only one thing is more important, that is your presence of mind. So how are you, you know, perceiving that particular thing, and how in the first place you are in a position to answer that, that is going to be very much important. So you have to be smart enough. First of all, you have to pick the theme कि भाई पूछ क्या रहा है, that is one thing, and then only you are in a position to answer that properly. So if you don't know what is being asked, if you have not prepared for that properly, it is very difficult for you to be answering that particular question. So always keep this in your mind, that we have to be mastering that particular aspect properly. समझ आया इतना? चलिए. So okay, now let me take you to the women aspect. Question coming on women organizations. We have seen question on sex ratio, women into the agriculture, this theme, women empowerment pe we have seen direct questions coming. So you know, this is actually one of the most important theme, I would say. So we have to be very much clear about this theme, that if and when a question comes, how in the first place are you supposed to be answering this? Now the best part is, you know, about this theme, recently in 2021 also I saw this question. Women empowerment theme ke upar, the most important aspect is that you will be seeing a lot of direct questions coming. Direct questions are literally coming from this very theme, and that is what makes this theme so much important. So they will literally be mentioning directly about the women empowerment in the question, and then you have to answer accordingly. So this is something which is quite interesting. So let me tell you, for example, in 2013 we had the question, male memberships need to be encouraged in order to make women organization free from gender bias comment. So this is quite an interesting thing, you know, about both the perspective should be taken into account, kind of that it was. So that was back in 2013, very analytical question. Then we had a question around 2015, it was 2015 2016 में आया था ये, कि discuss the positive and negative effect of globalization on the women. Now that's a question on globalization and women both. So ये दोनों themes यहाँ पे आ रही हैं. Both the themes are taken into account. Then we had a question that women's movement in India has not addressed the issue of women of lower social strata substantiate. Now that's a question of 2018. So now what are we looking at? This is basically question, you know, like women empowerment se related ye questions. All these questions are related to the women empowerment, directly, indirectly, that how women empowerment can be achieved effectively. It is not just about achieving that thing, it is about effectively achieving that thing in letter and spirit. That is what the idea is. So I hope that now you're understanding that what exactly is the context we have to focus upon. On this note, you have to understand, bete, in 2014 itself, we had this question on how patriarchy impact the position of middle class working women. अब देखो यहाँ पे what we have seen, patriarchy का question आ गया कि नहीं? यहाँ पे see, I have mentioned this thing कि 2014 में we had a proper question on patriarchy. सीधा सीधा ये क्वेश्चन आ रहा है किसके ऊपर? Women empowerment के ऊपर. That patriarchy is negative. Patriarchy can be addressed, but how it can be done, all these kind of things we have to be in a position to answer precisely, and that's why they're asking you. So you have to, have that analytical ability that how in the first place are you going to be answering these points. Answer कैसे कर सकते हो आप? That is very much important point we have to understand. So again, you can have in the present context also questions being asked on this theme, you have to understand. Then why do some of the most prosperous region have adverse sex ratio? अब sex ratio women से related है. So this was quite important. And in the same year we got a question on feminization of agriculture. Now that's quite an interesting thing. If the men are leaving to other areas in search of work, who is focusing on the agriculture? That is the women. So we are supposed to have this idea that these kind of terms which do appear in the current affairs or the newspaper every now and then, we have to focus on that as well. So back in that time, the economic survey also did focus on these particular things. So we have to master that. Similarly, back in 2019, we had this question on like empowering women is key to control population growth in India. How can we do that? So that's a very interesting question, connecting women with population growth. Then again, we had that what are the challenges for the women in India against time and space. See, this is quite an important point. So we are supposed to be, addressing both time और space, दोनों को आपको address करना होगा यहाँ पे. Then recently in 2021, we had a question on role of gig economy in process of empowerment of the women in India. Contractual work in India is increasing. How does that make sure that women are being empowered? Positive negatives you have to focus upon, because it is telling you to examine this issue. So every now and then we are getting a lot of questions from women empowerment. So we cannot end up, ignoring this fact. It is very much important. So how do you study? You study about the women role in agriculture, women role in service sector, women role in manufacturing. Every aspect you have to prepare. Once you have prepared that properly, then you are absolutely good to go. So इसमें इतना मुश्किल नहीं है. It is just that you have to be, addressing each and every aspect properly, and that is very much important. समझ आया बेटे इतना? So I am assuming that whatever we are talking about, you are able to make some sense out of it. Society portion, again, I would say it is very much predictable. You just have to have a proper analysis what we are doing as of now. Got it? Okay. So next theme I would like to pick is globalization. So now when I pick this theme of globalization, we have first of all impact of globalization. Now what I would suggest is, now that's a very interesting exercise, you have to focus on the impact of globalization. Now what you do, nowadays since AI is an all order, so AI and globalization you can connect first of all. Then focus on the impact of globalization on elderly, 60 plus people. Focus the impact of globalization on children. Focus impact of globalization on women. Focus impact of globalization on youth in general. Youth. Focus impact of globalization on some other aspects like study, education. Focus impact of globalization on health sector. This is how I would suggest you to focus, because effect or impact of globalization are important. Like in 2013 they asked on aged population kya impact hai, what is impact on the women. They've already asked these things. They can repeat that or they can ask on some other sections of society. Cultural humanization pe they had a question. Impact on local identity pe they had a question. So globalization is a very important thing. For example, 2013 mein they had a question on critically examine the effect of globalization on the aged population in India. Now see, it's so much important on the elderly. They are asking you. 2015 mein they had a question on positive and negative effect of globalization on women in India. So can't they ask on women ki jagah youth, children? They can ask about that, right? Adolescents. They can ask on education, they can ask on health, they can ask on tourism, they can ask on like related to AI, anything they can do. So we have to always make sure that on different sections we are focusing on the positive and negative effects of globalization. Simple point. Then there's a question, to what an extent globalization influence the core of cultural diversity. Now that's a beautiful question. They are joining culture along with the globalization, which becomes very much important. So we are supposed to study that also. Very much important this is. Getting it? So in a way, we are supposed to link two or three things together. Only then we are in a position to do well. Yahan pe. For example, globalization is said to promote cultural humanization. But due to this, cultural specification appear to be strengthened in the Indian society. You have to elucidate. That was back in 2018. This question was there. A bit analytical question. Then recently 2019 there was a question that are we losing local identity for global identity discuss. So, on a question on identities, that, Indian identity, is it being strengthened? Is it being weakened? How do we, understand that in a proper context? That is all, what you are being asked when we talk about this. And mind you, if you have done proper analysis, it is not going to be very much difficult for you to be answering that. It's very much basic point we have to keep in our mind. Hanji. So because see, Indian society mein pluralism is very much important. It's the kind of society we have. So we have so much diversity. We don't want to lose out on that diversity, as simple as that. So, in 2020 itself, we had a question, 2020 mein, is diversity and pluralism in India under threat due to globalization? Justify your answer. So when they are saying justify your answer, this means you can't write anything and everything. You have to justify, you have to give some succinct, some to the point, some relevant examples. Only then your answer will be acceptable. You can write anything and everything in such questions. This is one thing you have to keep in your mind. So yaad rakhiye. If examiner is deliberately giving you this cue, so you have to understand that. Samajh aa raha hai? So I am really hopeful about one thing, that what you are understanding from this particular aspect, you will be able to apply in your examination, because that is what is required ultimately. Okay. So moving ahead, now we talk about some aspects of poverty and some other relevant things we'll be talking about. So that is quite an important one, and I'll try to make sure that this poverty, population, migration, this particular aspect we can address diligently. So that is what I'll be trying to do. So let's focus there as well. Now the next theme which I would like you all to understand about is poverty, population. So isme, like, migration is a very important issue in India. Poverty, we have seen question on 2015, 2016, 2018, 2020. Back to back questions have been asked. So no doubt about that poverty is important, especially in Indian context. So it is very much important. We always talk about eradication of the poverty. We talk about the urbanization angle, and urban poverty we do talk about. So we have to understand this point, that whenever we are talking about the progress in India, growth, development in India, we are always in a position to talk about poverty and how we can eradicate that. So that's why this particular angle of poverty becomes immensely important. And what we have seen is that in India, this migration has been happening at a rapid pace. Why? Because people are literally migrating for the best better opportunities. So we are also linking that together. So all in all, what I would suggest is that whenever you're getting a question on these themes, you have to be very much smart enough that how in the first place you're going to be answering that. Ye bahut zyada important hai. And we always have to make sure that we have a proper clarity that how in the first place we are going to be answering that particular question. Clear? So I hope now at least you have this idea that if and when a question is coming, how exactly you are going to be answering that particular question. Okay. So now there was a question being asked that you have to examine whether growing population is the cause of poverty or poverty is the cause of the population. Now actually it's a vicious cycle. When you're poor, you don't have education, you're not aware, then that lead to more children, and in a way you have to link that together. So this was a question being asked. Discuss changes in the trend of labor migration within and outside India in the last 4 decades. So from blue collar jobs to white collar jobs, Indians are taking, and in a way you had to, link both of these things together. So you can very clearly see this particular thing that, whenever a question is being asked on this lines, how exactly are you going to be answering that precisely? That is what is required. Clear? For example, there was a question in 2020 because that was a COVID year कि COVID-19 accelerated class inequalities and poverty in India. अब ये देखो. So that's a very important question. We have seen class inequality certainly. So you have to justify that as well. You have to give some examples as well. Only then your answer actually stands apart. So if a question like this comes, you have to be in a position to write a decent answer. That is very much important. Now, you can have a look at this aspect as well. In 2016 also we had a question, like essential condition to eradicate poverty is to liberate the poor from the pressure of deprivation. Now that's a very analytical kind of the question they were asking. Yeah, despite implementation of various programs, still poverty is existing. Explain by giving the reasons for that. So all in all, when you're preparing poverty in India, you have to make sure that you are preparing that why in the first place we have the poverty, what all are the programs for the poverty eradication, and all these things you have to be linking together. Only then you are going to be getting proper marks on that. That is very much important. Surely, like population ki education jo hai, so you have to point out on that as well. This was also a question which was asked. Then recently 2018 we had a question on like smart city program, because that was going on at that point in time. So 2015 onwards we saw smart city mission was a lot of news maker. So we had to know about that also. So now I hope you know what all are the kind of the questions you're getting from this part, like migration I've told you, poverty I've told you, urbanization, population. So I'll just say, cause and effect relationship you have to study. What are the recent trends of migration you have to study? Recent trends of the poverty. How much is the poverty? You read economic survey. You will get a lot of data. Poverty kitni hai? Then we talk about multidimensional poverty. Multidimensional poverty index, Niti Aayog. You state the data which you find there. Have we seen a decreasing trend or increasing trend? Why is it so? Which state is more impacted? Which state is less impacted? They can ask you about that also, because see, poverty is being repeated almost every 2-3 years में एक बार आ रहा है. This year also we can expect a question. So you can't leave this portion untouched. Poverty is very much important यहाँ पे. You have to study it properly, and that's the reason why in the first place we are having this analysis, because we are trying to make sure that we have a proper clarity on what all are going to be the probable themes in this year paper. यही है ना इसका मतलब, यहाँ पे कोई ज्ञान तो बट नहीं रहा. We are in a way trying to decode that what exactly can be a probable question we can have in our paper. So that is what we are trying to do. So if you are in a position to do that effectively, that means this session is of immense importance. अगर वो नहीं हो रहा है तो मतलब importance नहीं है. Simple. So I am hopeful that this is the kind of session which is in a way giving you a proper clarity. I'll also show you some miscellaneous questions. We will be talking about that also, that what all are the miscellaneous questions, how do we tackle them, वो भी हम बात करेंगे towards the end, that there are some questions they are quite miscellaneous. Okay, then now we talk about the urbanization. We have seen growth of cities, smart city mission pe question I've shown you, urban floods, urban transport. So you can see there are urbanization related issues in India. A lot of issues are there. We all know that we are seeing rapid urbanization. At time urbanization is planned, at time urbanization is not planned the way it has to be planned. So that leads to a lot of problems, and what all are the problems, we have to be knowing that. So especially urban floods. So urban floods, you can categorize it into geography as well. You can categorize into this particular aspect as well, because when this question was asked, a lot of people said कि ये तो geography का question है. A lot of people said कि no, it's a question related to society as well. So that said, that is important for you to understand. For example, urbanization by 2013 में itself we had a question that social problems from speedy process of urbanization in India. What all are the social problems out of it? So this is the impact of urbanization, right? That we have some social problems related to urbanization. What are those? Similarly, in 2019, we had this question that what makes Indian society unique in sustaining its culture? Now that is kind of a very unique question which we have been asked, in the paper. So uniqueness you have to focus upon. So that is quite an interesting thing. Then we had this question that describe 4 cultural elements of diversity in India and rate their relative significance in building national identity. That was a very interesting question. Now that's a question precisely coming from Indian society overall, the aspect we talk about the Indian society, this is a proper question from that. So if you see the syllabus itself, what syllabus tells you? Syllabus tells you the salient feature of the Indian society and diversity in India. So this is a question pertaining to this. Got it? So, cultural elements of diversity. So you should know about that. Various elements you have to focus upon when we talk about the Indian society. You have to make a list, and then you make a list of the examples, make a list of the recent news items which have been making a lot of news, and that's how you connect them. There was a question, what is cryptocurrency? That's fine. How does it affect global society? Has it been affecting Indian society? Now, beautiful question this is. I would say this is a question on globalization aspect. This is a question on economy, and this is a question on society. So now these are the kind of the questions which are shaping your paper. Mind you, these are the kind of the questions which are going to be a bit on the tougher side, I would say. Ye tough questions hai. I'm not denying that this fact, because when this question was asked, this is from 2021 ka paper, let me tell you. And 2021 mein, again, not many knew about this crypto. Today, though, everybody talks about crypto, but this is from 2021. So it was a bit of a challenging thing for you to be answering the question back then, and this is what made it a bit, challenging for people to answer that. Samajh aa raha hai itna? So I am very much sure that now you are in a position to have a decent level of clarity. Now, 2024 ka paper I would like to show you, being the most, recent paper, we have to have a proper, clarity that how in the first place one was supposed to approach the questions which did come from this very paper as we talk about this. So very interesting paper, in fact it was. So I would like to list out the 7 questions in fact we had. So 100 marks ka pura society ka portion tha, which actually was a great surprise for a lot of people. Why? Because not many expect कि भाई 75 marks से ज़्यादा की society आएगी, but it did come and it was a big shocker for many. So this is from 2024. All these questions from 2024. So these are 10 markers. That why do large cities tend to attract more migrants than smaller cities? Now that's a question on migration. As I've told you, migration ka proper a question hai. So it's a very classic question. But now imagine this thing. If you have already done those questions on the migration, which I talked about just a few minutes back, you will be in a position to answer this effectively, right? Like as I've told you, we have seen questions coming from migration before as well. So migration ka agar aap dekhoge dhyan se question, have a look at this question which we did talk about. Ye dekho, changes in the trend of the labor migration. So if somebody has prepared this question well, they will be able to answer the 2024 ka question or not. So I'm just telling you that 2024 paper could have been done very much nicely if you have done the previous year papers properly. There was a question on distinguish between gender equality, gender equity, women empowerment. Ye distinguish karna tha. Why is it important to take gender concern into account in program design and implementation? So this was important. That's a question on the women empowerment only, but we have more of an analytical aspect involved in this question. That's one thing. Intercaste marriages between caste which have socio-economic parity have increased to some extent, but this is less true of interreligious marriage. So now that's a beautiful question. Isme they're asking the angle of the caste, and they're asking interreligious marriage, and the secularism ka angle bhi hai. There's an angle of secularism as well. So interreligious marriages and intercaste marriages, they are basically asking. So it was a very important question. A lot of examples you get from the recent news items as well. Then there was a question on regional disparity. This is a question on regionalism properly. So how it differs from the diversity. There was a question on social justice, underprivileged की बात करते हैं. ये थोड़ा सा constitutional angle है इसमें, but still it is important. Then of course we had a question on globalization. See, globalization increased the urban migration. So it's a migration or globalization ka question. And critically analyze that there is a relation between India's cultural diversity and socio-economic marginalities. You have to link both. Now, what this suggests is that, we are seeing some questions very much interlinking various aspects of the syllabus. There are some questions which ask you about the globalization, at the same time they take the angle of the women. Then there are some question on the globalization, at the same time they're focusing on the issue of poverty, they're focusing on the issue of the population. There are some questions on the caste identity, and at the same time they're also touching the angle of regionalism or secularism. Social empowerment ke questions are there. Salient features and diversity ke questions are always there. There are questions on urbanization. What are the problems? What are the solutions? Developmental issues ke questions are there. So not only every part of the syllabus is being touched, but also there is intermingling of 2 or 3 topics in one question, which actually makes these questions a bit challenging in nature. So I am hopeful that this analysis has given you a proper clarity on how in the first place are we going to be understanding the needs of the paper. You'll be finding the PDF here, IAS Origin UPSC PDF mil jayega. Do join this Telegram channel if you have not joined it yet, because this can be of immense help. Again, I'm telling you about the free test series which is there for you guys. The link is there in the description. For the first 50 students, it's totally free. There's a 3-hour workshop on Sunday, and that's for your preparation for 2026. It's from 12 to 3. There's a link again in the description below. So you can enroll for both of them. It can be surely very much helpful. And that was it from my side. Tomorrow, we are going to be doing the geographic analysis. So let me tell you, 12 p.m. tomorrow we'll be meeting again on the same channel. So that's why subscribe to the channel. So 12 p.m. live tomorrow, that is Friday, we'll be doing the geographica analysis. And that again is going to be of immense help to you guys. I'm sure about it. So that's very much it from my side. That's me, Akash and Dev, signing off. I hope this session has added a lot of value to your preparation, because we are literally decoded 100 marks ka almost portion of GS paper 1 mains, and tomorrow we'll be doing geography. So technically we'll be completing the GS1 analysis, and next week we'll be on to paper 2 of GS civil services examination. Thank you so very much. It was great having this.